Surprise, another propaganda piece. Before we get into the video here, just a reminder to go to the Invincible GTG official Discord, go to the meme contest, find my meme, I believe I posted it on June 5th, and click on the little smiley emoji in order to vote for it for the meme contest. I would very much like to be the agent of the month for June. I think that would be fun, and I could really use the gold dossiers. So just a little propaganda piece. Would greatly appreciate the help. Now on to the video. Hello all heroes, and welcome back to Invincible Guarding the Globe, and today we're going to be once again discussing some skill upgrades. However, in our last video we talked about the best characters, in my opinion, to upgrade with the skill upgrade material. This time around, we're gonna flip the script a little bit, because there were some major winners, but there were also some losers. 5 in particular I want to talk about as just a big old stay away when it comes to your hard-earned skill upgrade currency. Starting off with the melee Mauler Twin. Now, his battering ram skill here, he gets a 1-second stun, dashes past some people and deals damage basically. 13-second cooldown. It does go down to a whopping 11 seconds, so only a 2-turn cooldown, and it only goes up to a 2-second stun, so it's not even that massive. The damage buff is okay, but really, if you absolutely positively wanted to crank up Mauler Twin, you could get this one up to probably 5 would be your best break point, because you do get the cooldown reduction, but it's honestly not even worth the effort, because the stun doesn't even go up to the 3-second stun that a lot of characters like Doc Seismic got. Next, Dynamic Duo. This is what makes the Mauler Twins cook. And I think the devs knew this, because they were scared to death to touch this thing. To get all the way up to getting all the way up to level 10 only increases it by 2% of the physical attack and the physical damage. I mean, it literally just uses freaking percentages up until that point. I mean, that is a small upgrade for not a lot of for a lot of currency. That's a very small upgrade. Next here, self-improvement. Instead of 2 turns, his next 3 turns are empowered basically. And again, the cooldown reduction is not massive. It only goes down to like 9 seconds for 1 extra high damage attack. Just not worth the effort. Not worth the effort in the slightest. And then this one here, Healthy Genes. When he reaches 20% of his HP, he bounces back 15% of the damage for 5 seconds and heals by 15%. The ability has a 10-second cooldown. The heal doesn't even change. He just basically bounces back a little more damage for a little bit longer. It's such a tiny upgrade that it's not even close to worth the materials. Now, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more, but first I want to talk about the the second one, I guess if we're working up from 5. The 4th place one is the Mauler Twin, the machine gun version. His are no better. His overload here basically just gets slightly more damage. It's not even all that crazy. The burn damage boost is okay, but it's another situation where it's really not worth the materials for what is, in essence, a modest boost. Same thing for genetic power. It only goes up from 4% to 6% for each of the stats here, the energy attack and the energy defense. Teeny tiny buff. This ability, Frozen Bullets, select a random target, and silence for 3 seconds. It only gets like a bit of a damage boost, a slight cooldown reduction, and a 5-second silence. Not worth the resources for what is, in essence, a teeny tiny buff. And then his ability here, Get Out, which is like discount Doc Seismic's jump away ability. If an enemy is at melee range, he does an area of attack in front of him. In this case, again, it just gets a slight damage boost and a slight cooldown reduction. The cooldown reduction on this one's a little bit better, going from 18 down to 12 seconds. But again, to actually get that, you got to get all the way up to level 10. So, I want to talk about both the Mauler Twins here for just a second, because Probably what makes them so painful here is that to make a Mauler Twin team really cook, you pretty much have to have one of each along with Angstrom. Angstrom's abilities are not too bad, but to really get the most out of these buffs, you would have to not only get level 10 for the Mauler Twin and then level 10 for the Ranged Twin, but then you've got to do it again for another Melee Twin and another Ranged Twin if you're trying to really cook up that whole Mauler Twin team. And it's just not worth the effort. I mean, as they are, they're actually pretty dang good. If you do really put some effort into a Mauler Twin team with Angstrom, it's actually really freaking good. And these skill upgrades will not make it any better relative to how much the cost is. I mean, yes, it is technically an improvement. It basically, if you're going for a full Mauler Twin team, it improves your stat buffs from a 16% boost up to a 24% boost for each Mauler Twin. It's just not worth it, though. It's just not. I mean, and it's so disappointing because it is just such a teensy-weensy buff. And then all these others, it's like, meh, nothing going on here. Next, I want to talk about Titan, because, and this might be just a thing with defenders aside from Alan, Titan did not get a whole lot. His main ability here, he does some damage, he gets a taunt for a few seconds, and then he does get a shield. The only thing you get here is he gets like 2 more seconds of a taunt, a slightly higher shield going up from 5% all the way up to 9%. Not a massive buff, and then it lasts 5 seconds instead of 8 seconds. That shield, I mean, it's still a defensive buff, but if they crack through it, then it's not going to be very helpful. And then only a 1 second cooldown reduction all the way at level 10, which is just insulting at that point. Like, no, there's literally no reason to power this up at all. At least he does get up to a 4 second taunt at level 5, which is okay. So if you really want to power up Titan, that's probably going to be your break point. But this ability is just not worth the effort. And this one, hard skip. Reduces enemies' healing effect when fighting against any Guardians of the Globe, which effectively means fighting against Robot. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, because keep in mind, Robot is going to be getting a counter buff fighting married to the mob characters, which Titan is. So, at the most, it negates Robot's own buff, which just ain't worth the effort. This one here, it does get a better stun. This ability, Earthquake, is okay. Cooldown going down, or cooldown doesn't actually go down at all, still 13 seconds. But basically, it's a slightly higher damage, and the stun goes up to 2.5. This is the only ability that really squeaks by with a ranking of okay, because of that 2.5 second stun. But even then, somebody like Doc Seismic, if you're really going for stuns, he has shorter cooldowns and he has longer stuns. So it's just not worth it if you're going versus the Titan versus Doc Seismic. It just is not anywhere near worth it. And then this one increases physical defense by a percentage for every 5% of missing HP. Just don't even care about this one. I mean, yeah, it increases defensive stats against just, you know, your basic punching, but it doesn't even help against energy ability attacks. Like, whenever they use their main abilities, they're not going to care about Rock Solid at all. So, again, just kind of a dud there. Nothing to write home about. And again, an egregious amount of resources for what is effectively a modest improvement at best. Next, and this one, I'll be curious to see what people's opinions are of this one. I want to talk about Monster Girl. Now, Monster Girl is extremely good. Monster Girl is arguably one of the best defenders, arguably the best defender in the game, only competing with Alan, and that's really more so a bit of a role situation. Alan is like strictly a defender, whereas Monster Girl is kind of more in the bruiser territory. And I think for this reason, they really did nothing with her abilities. Okay. So first of all, Monster Mash here. Deals AoE damage, stuns any grounded enemies for 0.25 seconds, which is hilarious. And then she gets a bit of extra damage from a punch and some life leech. The stun doesn't even increase, man. I mean, do I even need to explain why this is just pitiful? The stun stays at 0.25 seconds. A quarter of a second stun. That's a blink. I mean, you basically, the enemy's just gonna go, oh, anyways. And I mean, they basically just, they jump a little bit, you scare them a little bit, and then they're right back at it. I mean, it is nothing. I mean, the life leech is okay, but there's other characters that can get you life leech, like if you're running with a battle beast or an Omni-Man, or if you're just getting healing. I mean, it's just not worth it. This ability here increases her defense, or increases the defense of Guardians of the Globe allies by 5.5% of her HP. It doesn't even properly double. It goes up to 10%, a modest buff at best. Extra Bitto Monster here. She gets a permanent attack boost equal to 10% of her current HP. That only gets a 3% boost. Now, to be fair, she does have a lot of HP, which is the whole point of these two abilities. She does have some beefy HP. But these percentages, man, is 3%. Is a 3% boost for all of these resources really going to change the hearts and minds of anybody using Monster Girl? I don't think so. That's such a tiny boost, and it's not even, it's barely even on the board at that point. And then bring their guard down. Monster Girl dispels enemy shields with her basic attacks, and instead of receiving shields, she receives a healing effect. All you get here is the healing effect goes up from 65% all the way up to 110%. Keep in mind, she might not even be on a team using shield. Like, if you're on an Adam Eve team, sure, that's fine. But if you're not on an Adam Eve team, then this is worthless. And even if you are on an Adam Eve team, 65% of the shield value is still pretty good. And you can get up to like 85% at level 5 here, which is not a bad breakpoint. It's a situation where Monster Girl is really freaking good. Her abilities are really good. But I think as a result, they basically very teensy-weensy inched up her skills just a little bit because they didn't want her to go freaking nuts. Which, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I get that. But don't use your currency on Monster Girl. At the most, maybe you could use it for her Monster Mash skill, or maybe extra Bitto Monster if you desperately want to power up Monster Girl. But honestly, skip it. You don't need it. If you really want to power up a defender, go for Alan. I didn't list him in my top 5 skills video previously, but Alan is definitely ranking at number 6 if I wasn't going to go that far. Alan is a great defender for skills, and I'll talk about him in another video. If you need a powered up defender that bad, go for Alan. And finally, a character that has really never had the chance to ball is Bulletproof. This dude is discount invincible in the worst way, and his skills do not put him out of there at all. First of all, he pushes the enemy in front of him 3 times, following the target, dealing 370% damage. I mean, he increases his crit damage a bit, which is kind of his thing. I mean, he's supposed to be doing crits. He gets that at about level 5. But I mean, it's a modest boost at best. It's still only going to hit 3 times. The percentage doesn't even go that sky high. It goes from 370 to 425, which is okay. But you're only going to really notice a crit damage buff once you do get him up to level 10. And at that point, you could have used those on Invincible. You could have used those on any support character other than Bulletproof. Next, if there's any human on the team, he decreases the damage received from ranged targets by 5%. That goes up to 15%. That's okay. This one is one of his that is okay because, admittedly, there are some really powerful ranged characters. You've got Doc Seismic and Universa probably being the best examples of that. So that is something to keep in mind. I'll give this one a passing grade of a C. Because, to be fair, there's a lot of powerful ranged enemies. But really, you're going to spend all those resources just to get a 10% damage reduction from those ranged enemies, when you could literally give them to any other attacker, defender, or support to focus on putting the enemy down? Nah, hard skip from me, dog. And then this one. This one's probably his most controversial ability, because of just how weird it is. Every 7 critical strikes, which is a lot of critical strikes, by the way, he increases his attack stat by 17% for 3 seconds and becomes immune for 3 seconds. At level 10 here, all he gets is a slight attack stat boost and a slight duration boost on that attack stat. He still only gets 3 seconds. To go back to Green Ghost here, her invincibilities, which are effectively or invisibilities, which is effectively immunity, doubles, goes from 3 to 6 seconds. He doesn't even have the benefit of going up to 6 seconds. If he did, that'd be something. But it's still just 3 seconds. Now, I think what they're trying to avoid here, because technically speaking, there's not a cooldown on this. I think they're trying to avoid him being able to constantly proc this. If you are able to, like, give him the Reaniman Arm Relic or Artifact where it increases his crit stats and makes it more consistent, I think that's what they're trying to avoid. But consequently, they've made it so that it is worth nothing to power up this skill. I mean, the attack stat boost is okay, but I do emphasize okay. At that point, if you desperately want to power up Bulletproof, you might as well go up to about level 5 and call it a day. And then Immovable. Bulletproof is immune to push and pull effects and increases crit chance by 50% for 3 seconds. That goes up to 100% for 7 seconds. This is the only ability that is really worth anything on him, because the 100% for 7 seconds is okay. If you're fighting an enemy that's trying to move you around like crazy, this one's okay. Problem is, you gotta go all the way up to level 10 for it, which is a hilariously massive investment window, or an investment floor, because at level 9, it's only 75% for 6 seconds. That's a huge difference from 100% to 7 seconds. That's pretty massive. So, no, yeah, just not worth it at all. This character has really never been in the game, and even with some buffs, it just has not meant a whole lot, and these skill upgrades have not changed that truth at all. So, that is what I am currently listing as my top 5 worst skill upgrade characters. The 2 Mauler twins, Monster Girl, Titan, and Bulletproof. If you're trying to decide where to use your currency, skip those. Go for someone like Robot or Adam Eve or Green Ghost. And I haven't talked about him a whole lot, but your main DPS characters like Invincible and Omni-Man get some pretty tasty buffs. I mean, his invincibility goes from 5 seconds to 7 seconds. Omni-Man's Gut Punch skill goes from 10% to a nice healthy 20% in order to get the insta-kill. I haven't listed them in previous videos, only because it can be a little bit situational. Depending on things, especially with Omni-Man, but I mean, it's still an improvement. That's a massive Gut Punch improvement, so that's just kind of my opinions. Now, to be fair, it's opinions. If you really love your Mauler twin team and you want to get them cranked up, well, first of all, start with Angstrom, because his abilities are actually kind of okay. Angstrom gets a pretty decent buff, especially if you do get him all the way leveled up at Epic Plus. He actually kind of does okay, not gonna lie. Angstrom's got some nice stuff. So if you really want a Mauler twin team, build up Angstrom. Don't worry about cranking up the Maulers. And if you do want to crank up the Maulers, just know that you've got to invest in them ridiculously for what might end up being pretty diminishing returns. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. Now, as a final note, I am going to be doing a tier list soon. I know y'all have been really asking for that one. I've been holding off on it because I kind of suspected they were going to do something like this for the skill upgrades. I've been holding off on doing a proper tier list, but it is coming. I'm just kind of waiting on a few things to fall in place for me personally, but there will be a tier list in the future. Don't panic, it will arrive. But that is all we have for today. Let me know down in the comments below who you've been leveling up with their skills, and we shall see you next time. Have a good one.